Very good evening to you once again and welcome to Rwanda Television News. My name is Sam Kalisa.
And I'm Fiona Mbabazi. Now, this Monday afternoon, President Paul Kagame chaired a cabinet meeting at Urugwiro village. Now, the meeting discussed a range of topics, including the COVID-19 pandemic and the strategies to contain the spread of the virus in the country. During the previous meeting held on Friday, September the 25th, 2020, the cabinet resolved to extend COVID-19 curfew from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Orders for the gradual resumption of schools based on levels of education, public transport between Kigali and other provinces were also cleared to resume, while COVID-19 tests were no longer required for social gathering, including weddings with fewer than 30 guests. However, the public was encouraged to take advantage of the COVID-19 voluntary testing facilities as a preventive measure, among other things. Now, the cabinet is expected to revise the existing measures to contain the pandemic upon a health assessment.
Now, Her Excellency Jeanette Kagame has called for aggressive measures to end child sexual abuse. The First Lady made the call during the occasion to mark the Day of the Girl and the launch event of Ending Child Sexual Abuse campaign held this Monday. Ethan Tashobia has the report.
According to Rwanda Investigation Bureau, over the last 3 years, they have received 10,456 cases of child sexual abuse. 98% of these victims are girls. RIB has also revealed that the cases of child sexual abuse have increased during COVID-19 crisis. In 3 months, from March to June, 864 cases of child sexual abuse were reported, while 1,310 cases of sexual abuse were recorded between June and August 2020. Girls believe that the offenders intend to cut their future short.
Such men and boys who commit sexual child abuse, despite the laws in place that punish the crime, are the enemies of the country. They are destroying the future of our country, Rwanda.
In a video address, the First Lady, Jeanette Kagame, urged everyone to take responsibility in preventing child sexual abuse.
Sinzi ko ibi twabibonera inyito ariko ntibikwiye.
I do not think we can find the right name to call it. It is disgraceful. To hear that a parent, a relative, or a teacher has sexually abused a child, you can't imagine where to start from to protect children. I strongly urge men, especially in preventing this problem, and I trust your role in this struggle. To my fellow parents and teachers, let's speak to our children more often. Let's be our neighbor's keeper and protectors of our young people.
Several people believe that uncommon interpretation of the child sexual abuse has been a hindrance in fighting the vice. This has led some people to discourage victims from reporting sexual abuse cases to authorities.
Some families of the victims have discouraged their abused children from reporting to RIB, let alone covering up the crimes. When some are abused by the people they consider loved ones or get pregnant, they tend to cover up. This becomes a challenge in punishing this crime. We have cases of some grassroots leaders who act as mediators when a crime has been committed by their neighbors, and they hence turn the crime into a civil matter. In some cases, local leaders intimidate a victim or the relative of the victim from reporting the abuser, turning the victim into a criminal instead.
Isanje One Stop Center, an organization that provides psychological, medical, police and legal services to adults and child survivors of gender-based violence and child abuse, explained the impact of abuse on the victim's life. Some children are abused, and you can't help imagine if the abuser is a human being or a monster. A 3-year-old child who has been raped by a 30-year-old man or a 50-year-old man to an extent of destroying their reproductive body parts, and it affects their internal parts. Some victims end up being operated on and given artificial discharge parts because their anal parts have been destroyed. Some victims recover while others die. Statistics show that 50% of the children who are raped below the age of 5, they commit suicide at a later age. It is against this background that the First Lady Jeannette Kagame has called for aggressive measures to end child sexual abuse.
Birabaje kubona ubushakashatsi bwakozwe bugaragaza ko 20% by'abana baterwa inda.
It is sad to see that statistics indicate 20.5% of teen pregnancies are below the age of 11. I call on everyone in their respective capacities to come up with aggressive and innovative measures to fight child sexual abuse, to think about expediting the cases of suspected and convicted abusers. Legal experts should think about drafting these cases along with an expired term. We should be close to the victims of child abuse and help them to recover and give them hope for life.
Tubafashe gukira bikomere no kubagarurira icyizere n'ibyishimo byo kubaho.
The launch of the Ending Child Sexual Abuse campaign coincided with the occasion to mark the Day of the Girl, which is celebrated annually on October 11. Reporting for RwandaTV News, Ethan Tashobi.
Now, students who have returned to universities and institutes of higher education in the country have welcomed the resumption of the academic year after almost 7 months of interruption following the COVID-19 pandemic. They say they are ready to adapt all the measures put in place by the health authorities to avoid another progressiveness of the pandemic, which could mean a return to square one.
The resumption of the academic year this Monday in the various academic institutions of the country was a sigh of relief for many. The first rule observed by all academics as well as students was ensuring that there was hand-washing stations, sanitizers, and respecting all preventive measures. The entire academic board on Monday was happy to be able to resume their activities. I was really frustrated. The months seemed endless, especially since I was in my last year. I'm satisfied with this recovery because I could finally finish.
We are happy
to find our students, but the institution has taken measures, in particular out of respect for the physical distancing program. The students study in small groups to avoid closeness and favorable ground for the pandemic.
There is the temperature measurement for anyone entering the doors of the establishments, the recording of all these people in order to find them easily if necessary, thanks to their telephone numbers. At the level of these institutions, rotations have been organized to prevent the teacher from meeting a large number of students or even having students meet in very large number.
We are putting all these measures in place to avoid any single case breaking on campus. That's why we do temperature taking up there, such that in case we get your temperature is above 37 or 38 centigrade, we hold you outside. But we also encourage students who don't feel okay, don't come to the campus. If you don't feel okay, you cannot always reach out to the number that has been given by the government so that you're being checked. So we don't encourage students coming on if they don't feel okay. But however, we are trying to put everything in place to prevent other than cure.
A total of 13 universities and institutes of higher education in the country have been authorized to open by the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education has asked the establishments to provide a room in which people suspected of carrying the virus can be accommodated temporarily and followed by a doctor as they await further instructions.
First of all, I want to thank the government of Rwanda for putting measures to safeguard the citizens of Rwanda, including me, who is a foreigner in this country. I have to protect myself and protect my friends through putting masks all times and to sanitize all the time, to keep social distancing and to follow the rules and regulations put by the Rwanda government and also Yelka as a school.
Education Minister Dr. Uwamaria Valentine explained that other schools may gradually open with time. This does not mean that other institutions will not reopen, as it depends on the readiness of each institution. The resumption will be gradual. In March, classes were suspended for the entire educational sector of the country to prevent the rapid progression of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Now, the Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, Dr. Natil Mukabalisa, held talks with the President of the Niger Parliament, Semi Oseini Tini. The talks focused on sharing the knowledge and expertise between the two houses. The President of Niger Parliament, Semi Oseini Tini, explained that Rwanda has grown over the years, and so has the country's governance, that many nations now look up to Rwanda as a good example. Speaker of the Rwandan Parliament, Donatil Mukabalisa, explained that there was a need to share experiences as Africans.
hari ibyo batugaragarije ko bumva batwigiraho nk'igihugu.
They have said that they want to learn from us, but there is much we both can learn from one another, even from our conversations. They mentioned that they want to promote their citizens' livelihoods, and this is also important to us.
Bakaganira bagira icyo bageraho kandi gifitiye akamaro bose.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry has said that online retailers increased more than threefold in the last 8 months due to the increase in online shopping.
Patrick Kambali imports vehicles from abroad. After closing borders because of the coronavirus pandemic, Patrick continued his business online.
It used to be easy because it was a habit. He would go physically instead of working on the phone. We learned a lot in this COVID-19. We can now do everything by using technology without traveling to Tanzania or elsewhere.
The online traders appreciate how the government has put more effort in boosting technological sector.
COVID-19 coming, and we work more for developing the idea to fighting COVID-19 and to help the businesses to go through online without commission and for free, and he can work from his home, or he can move from a normal shop to online shop. In this way, like this business continue with anything happened, because the way for the work, from you work online, you cannot see the customers. Example, you can sell your product without meet the person.
In fact, since the pandemic outbreak, online sales increased by 50% because I can now have more than 20 online buyers where there were only 6 people before.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry has said that the online trading and shopping increased during the COVID-19 pandemic, as explained by Bienvenu Rukundo, e-commerce specialist at Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Twagerageje gukora igenzura ry'imbuga twari dufite.
At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, only 9 online retailers met the requirements to sell goods and services. In June, we found that they had doubled to 18 retailers, and now we have 35 online retailers that meet the requirements. It gives hope that the money we used to spend will remain in Rwanda, and the way of creating new jobs is also increasing.
Bigatuma n'uburyo bwo guhanga imirimo mishya nabwo buzamuka.
The trade sector has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, but also technology helped this sector to face the effects, as well as saving the cross-border trade.
Now, some buyers and sellers in Kigali city markets say that there are some people who have started violating COVID-19 preventive guidelines owing to the fact that the number of infections have decreased over the past days. The Rwanda Biomedical Center, RBC, says ignoring the COVID-19 preventive guidelines can worsen the matter. We have the story.
In some parts of Kigali city markets, you find some traders and buyers not wearing face masks, others wearing them the wrong way, others do not observe social distancing, while other traders do not comply with the rule of working in shifts. When their shift ends, some decide to become street vendors, while others carry on their business activities outside market premises. Some people say that a reduction in the number of COVID-19 cases in the country triggered complacency towards adhering to preventive guidelines. As time passes, and also with the reduction in the number of cases, we took measures easy. Even some guidelines were eased. Plus, the number of recoveries increased.
Before, we could hear 100 cases, but now it's between 4 and 10 cases. That's the reason.
Before things were so hard, cases were very many, but now numbers of new infections are reducing significantly. We should continue preventive guidelines because if we don't, we are likely to be put under lockdown again.
When people hear that the number of cases have reduced, they think that the pandemic is over. But for us who work from markets, we observe guidelines carefully, including social distancing. Some of the market leaders say that they continue to sensitize vendors, pointing out that the pandemic still exists and therefore no one should downplay the preventive guidelines since new cases are registered daily. When number of buyers is high, the market can receive approximately 3,000 people, which means only half of the number can enter. Even buyers are put in the order of lines with limited time to purchase commodity so that they can go out and give space to others. Even those people who dodge working from markets should be stopped so that they don't be the pathway for the spread of COVID-19. Though numbers have reduced gradually, people continue to die from the pandemic. We have 480 traders. Some work today, others work the following day. We urge everyone to make it a priority, not thinking that it concerns leaders and volunteers only. When you look around, some people no longer consider the preventive guidelines, but security organs follows them up. On the other hand, failure to comply with these regulations has become normal in public bus terminals. The Rwanda Biomedical Center RBC says downplaying the COVID-19 preventive guidelines can worsen the matter, as explained by the Director General of Rwanda Biomedical Center, Dr. Saben Sanzimana. There are times when we spent 3 days without registering any new case, but later it changed. We witnessed that from our country, not outside. So COVID-19 is like other diseases. It might catch people by surprise if they don't decide to comply with the measures. So we do not wish to fail. The time we've spent with the virus, we've seen our strengths and weaknesses. When the number of COVID-19 cases reduce, it's an opportunity to strengthen the measures, like in congested places. People should continue washing hands and wearing face masks. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit Rwanda on March 14th this year, more than 408,000 people have been infected. Among those, 74% have recovered from the virus, whereas 1,200 people are still sick. So far, COVID-19 has killed 31 people in Rwanda.
Well, absolutely. I think some you will agree that it's not the right time for people to relax on the COVID-19 measures.
Absolutely. Many of us, as we just heard from the story, have just ignored the COVID-19 preventive guidelines, owing it to the fact that the number of cases went on reducing and reducing and reducing. But I support the fact that Dr. Saben Sanzimana just pointed out that by the fact that the numbers are reducing, it's rather an opportunity to strengthen the measures than starting to ignore them.
Absolutely, and that's why we're going to read, of course, a COVID-19 update that has just come in. The total cases of those that have been infected by the coronavirus is 4,905 with 9 new cases. You know, another reason for us not to relax. 9 new cases were recorded today. The number of recoveries is 3,877 plus 271 new recoveries. Active cases 996. Now the tests that have been conducted so far 521,137 plus 2,149 new tests that were conducted today. Now, unfortunately, we had 1 death recorded today, bringing the number of those that have died so far from the COVID-19 to 32. Now, the test positivity rate is 0.4%. Now, to just bring a total countdown to where these new total cases have been recorded in Nyagatare, 8, but these are from the truck drivers. Kayonza, we had 1. And that means we have new 9 total cases that have been recorded in the country today. And of course, condolences to the family of the 51-year-old man who passed away. Signed, Ministry of Health.
And on behalf of the entire news team that made this happen, we thank you very much for being with us. My name remains Sam Kalisa.
And I'm Fiona Mbabazi.
Please do remember that social distancing still remains important whenever in public.
Absolutely. Wear your face mask correctly, sanitize, and together
we can stop the spread of COVID-19.
Absolutely. Have yourselves a lovely evening and a good night.